The courtyard was bathed in the golden hues of the late afternoon sun, shadows stretching lazily across the cobblestones. Ivy climbed the walls like a living tapestry, and the scent of blooming jasmine filled the air. It was a place where secrets whispered, and eyes lingered longer than necessary. Tonight, it would witness something far more intoxicating than the fragrance of flowers. Elena leaned against the stone fountain, her fingers brushing against the cool edge, her mind a swirl of anticipation. She had always been drawn to the courtyard, a quiet retreat from the bustling house, a place where she could breathe without the weight of expectation. But today felt different. Every rustle of leaves, every distant step on the cobblestones, seemed charged with electricity. She glanced up, catching sight of Adrian across the courtyard. He was leaning casually against a marble column, the sunlight catching the sharp line of his jaw, the shadow of a smirk playing on his lips. There was a confidence about him that made her pulse quicken, a magnetic energy that pulled her gaze unwillingly toward him. Adrian's eyes met hers, and for a moment, the world beyond the courtyard seemed to vanish. The chatter of servants, the clinking of glasses from the nearby dining hall all faded into insignificance. There was only the space between them, a charged silence thick with unspoken desire. "Enjoying the afternoon, Elena?" His voice was smooth, low, teasing, and it sent a shiver down her spine. She smiled, a playful edge in her tone. "I always enjoy the courtyard. It has possibilities." His smirk widened, and he stepped closer, the sound of his boots echoing softly. "Possibilities, you say?" He raised an eyebrow, the hint of mischief unmistakable. "Do any of them involve me?" Her heart fluttered at the suggestion. She had always sensed a tension between them, a spark that neither had dared fully acknowledge. Yet here, in the privacy of the courtyard, the rules of propriety felt suspended. She could feel the heat of his presence even from a few steps away, drawing her closer without a single touch. "I might be tempted," she admitted, her voice dropping to a whisper. "If the temptation is strong enough." Adrian's gaze darkened, a flicker of something more primal surfacing. He closed the distance between them with a slow, deliberate grace, his eyes never leaving hers. Every movement seemed to pull her deeper into a magnetic pull she had no intention of resisting. The fountain gurgled softly behind them, its rhythmic sound mingling with the rapid beat of her heart. She could feel the warmth of his body just a breath away, his presence overwhelming and intoxicating. There was a daring in the way he looked at her, a promise of indulgence that made her knees weak. "Then I suppose we must explore these possibilities," he murmured, his lips curving into a tantalizing smile. He extended a hand, an unspoken invitation she couldn't refuse. Her fingers brushed his as she took it, a spark shooting through her at the contact. The world seemed to tilt slightly, as though gravity itself had shifted, pulling her closer to him. The courtyard had never felt more alive, each shadow and glint of sunlight conspiring to heighten the tension between them. For a moment, they stood there, hand in hand, the air thick with desire. Elena could feel the heat radiating from him, an invisible current that wrapped around her senses. She had wanted him for months, had dreamed of this silent understanding that connected them in ways words could never capture. Adrian leaned in slightly, close enough that she could feel the faint brush of his lips against her hair. "Careful," he whispered, his voice a velvet caress. "I might not be able to resist much longer." Elena's breath caught, her pulse hammering in her ears. The temptation was overwhelming, intoxicating, irresistible. She knew the next moments could change everything between them, ignite a fire that neither could contain. And somehow, in the quiet of the courtyard, With the sun casting golden light over their skin, she realized she didn't want to. The courtyard had grown quieter as evening approached, shadows deepening, wrapping the space in a soft, mysterious glow. Lanterns were being lit, their golden light flickering across the ivy-covered walls, casting delicate patterns that danced across the cobblestones. Elena felt the air grow warmer around her, not from the fading sun, but from the heat radiating between herself and Adrian. They had moved closer, their hands still intertwined, fingers brushing in a way that set her nerves alight. Every subtle touch carried promise, a whisper of desire that seemed to hum louder than the distant sounds of the household settling for the night. She could feel the deliberate strength in his grip, the way he adjusted the angle of his stance so that their bodies were almost touching, close enough that each subtle shift sent shivers through her. Adrian's gaze was locked on hers, intense and unyielding, a flame reflected in dark eyes that seemed to see into the depths of her thoughts. "I can't help but notice," he murmured, his voice low, almost reverent, "that every time you look at me, your breath catches. Every time our fingers touch, it's like you're pulled into something you can't resist." Elena swallowed, feeling her pulse quicken. "Maybe," she admitted, her voice soft, "I don't want to resist." A slow, tantalizing smile curved his lips. "Good," he said simply, stepping even closer so that the warmth of his body pressed gently against hers. The air around them seemed to thrum with unspoken energy, a silent rhythm that pulled them together. "Because I've been wanting this, wanting you, for far too long." She tilted her head, meeting his gaze fully, letting herself be drawn into the storm of intensity that surrounded him. Every heartbeat felt louder, every breath shallower, as though the courtyard itself had conspired to create this moment. Her fingers grazed the nape of his neck, teasing, testing, savoring the reaction she saw flicker across his features. Adrian leaned forward, his forehead resting lightly against hers, eyes never leaving hers. "You have no idea what you do to me," he whispered, his voice a velvet caress that made her shiver. The scent of his cologne mixed with the jasmine in the air, intoxicating, irresistible. "Every glance, every smile, it drives me wild. And now, here, in this courtyard, I can't hold back anymore." Elena's breath hitched, the anticipation building inside her like a storm ready to break. She could feel the magnetic pull between them, the way every inch of space seemed charged, as though the courtyard itself had become an arena for their growing temptation. Slowly, she closed the remaining distance, her lips brushing against his in the gentlest of touches, testing, teasing, feeling the shock of warmth that spread through her at the contact. Adrian responded immediately, his lips pressing against hers with a mix of restraint and urgency that made her knees weak. The kiss deepened, slow and deliberate at first, savoring the sensation, the taste, the heat. His hands traced the curve of her waist, pulling her closer, and she leaned into him, surrendering to the intoxicating pull. They broke apart only slightly, foreheads touching, breaths mingling, the world around them disappearing. The lanterns flickered, shadows dancing across their skin, casting a golden glow over the rising fire of desire that neither could hide. "I've imagined this moment," Adrian admitted, his voice a husky whisper. "Every day, every night. And now it's real." Elena felt a thrill of boldness, a daring spark that matched his intensity. "Then don't hold back," she said softly, her hand resting against his chest, feeling the rapid beat of his heart. "I don't want you to." He chuckled, a low, dangerous sound that vibrated in her chest, before capturing her lips again. This time, the kiss was deeper, more urgent, exploring, claiming, as if the courtyard itself demanded that they give in to the temptation it had silently nurtured. The fountain gurgled behind them, the soft, rhythmic sound mingling with their rising pulse, the scent of jasmine wrapping around them like a cloak of secrecy. Each movement, each touch, was deliberate, heightening the tension, pushing them further toward surrender. Adrian rested his forehead against hers once more, breath uneven, eyes dark with longing. "This is only the beginning," he murmured. "The courtyard, and everything beyond, belongs to us tonight, if you'll let it." Elena's lips curved into a daring smile, her fingers tightening around his. "I will," she whispered. "More than you know." And with that, the courtyard seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the next chapter of desire to unfold. The lanterns had fully awakened the courtyard, their warm glow flickering against the ivy-covered walls and casting playful shadows across the cobblestones. The soft hum of the evening breeze carried the scent of jasmine and roses, wrapping the space in a sweet, almost intoxicating perfume. For Elena, every detail, the sound, the light, the very air seemed to heighten the pulse racing through her veins. Adrian had drawn her to the center of the courtyard, their bodies close enough that the brush of their arms or the graze of fingers against skin felt electric. He held her gently but firmly, his hands resting at the small of her back as if anchoring both of them to this moment. Her breath came in soft, uneven gasps, not from exertion but from the magnetic tension that had been building between them for months, now finally allowed to surface. "Do you feel it too?" Adrian asked, his voice a low murmur that vibrated against her ear. "The way the air seems heavier, charged, waiting for us." Elena nodded, unable to speak for a moment, captivated by the intensity of his gaze. I feel it," she admitted, her lips brushing against his shoulder. "It's as if the courtyard itself wants this." He smiled, a slow, deliberate curve of his lips, and she felt a shiver ripple down her spine. "Then we shouldn't resist it," he whispered, leaning in so their foreheads touched. "Tonight, we explore every possibility. Every temptation." Elena's pulse thundered in her ears. She could feel his warmth enveloping her, a constant, alluring presence that made it impossible to think clearly, impossible to step back. She had dreamed of this closeness, of the moment when the tension between them would finally ignite, and now that it had, she surrendered entirely to it. Their lips met again, slow at first, a gentle press that allowed them to savor the sensation, the taste, the heat. But the kiss deepened, became more urgent, as if the courtyard itself demanded a surrender beyond hesitation. Adrian's hands moved to her waist, pulling her closer, and Elena wrapped her arms around his neck, the soft scrape of her fingers against his hair sending sparks through both of them. Every inch of their proximity was electric. The brush of lips, the caress of fingertips along exposed skin, the shared warmth of bodies pressed together all conspired to erase the boundaries that had kept them apart. The world outside the courtyard, the distant laughter of servants, the clinking of glasses from the dining hall faded into nothingness. There was only this moment, this fire between them, and the soft gurgle of the fountain nearby. Adrian broke the kiss just long enough to whisper against her lips, "Elena, you have no idea what you do to me." His words were a confession, raw and unfiltered, and she felt a thrill of power in knowing that she had such an effect on him. She smiled, daring, teasing. "Neither do you," she whispered back. "Not fully. Not yet." That earned a chuckle, low and satisfied, before his lips captured hers again with renewed intensity. They moved together slowly, deliberately, circling the fountain as if the courtyard itself were guiding their steps. Shadows flickered across their faces, mingling with the golden lantern light, creating an intimate cocoon around them. At a sudden, daring moment, Elena pressed herself closer, her lips brushing his cheek, then his jaw, teasing, testing. Adrian responded immediately, his hands tracing the curve of her back, the gentle slope of her shoulders, sending tremors of desire through her. Every touch, every movement was charged, deliberate, a dance of temptation that neither wanted to end. "You're driving me mad," he confessed, voice husky with longing. "Every glance, every touch. I can't think straight around you." "And yet, here you are," Elena murmured, her lips brushing his again, "letting yourself be led by me." Adrian's smirk was a shadow of mischief and hunger. "I don't think anyone could resist you," he said softly. "Not tonight. Not ever." The air between them seemed to pulse with anticipation, every heartbeat echoing in the silent courtyard. Elena's eyes met his, filled with both daring and surrender. She felt the full weight of their connection, a magnetic pull that made every rational thought impossible. All that mattered was the fire between them, the thrill of the temptation that neither could deny. And as the night deepened, with the lanterns flickering and the fountain's water sparkling in the golden light, Elena and Adrian gave themselves fully to the heat of the moment, knowing that this was only the beginning of an intoxicating journey neither of them would ever forget. The night had grown deeper, and the courtyard now glowed under the soft, golden light of the lanterns. Shadows stretched across the cobblestones, dancing over the ivy that clung to the ancient walls. The air was thick with the scent of jasmine and roses, and every breeze seemed to carry with it a whisper of promise. Elena's heartbeat thundered in her chest as she stood close to Adrian, feeling the warmth of his body envelop her, the electricity between them almost unbearable. He brushed a strand of hair from her face, his fingers lingering on her cheek. His touch was gentle, but it carried a weight, a silent command that made her shiver. "I can't stop thinking about you," he murmured, his lips close to her ear, voice a husky whisper that made her pulse race. "Every time we're this close, I feel like I could lose control." Elena's lips curved into a soft smile, daring and teasing. "Then maybe you should," she whispered back, her voice barely audible over the sound of her own racing heartbeat. "Maybe that's exactly what I want." His dark eyes sparkled with both mischief and desire, and in that moment, Elena realized just how much power they had over each other. Every glance, every touch, every word carried a weight of longing that neither of them could ignore. Adrian stepped closer, reducing the space between them until she could feel the warmth radiating from his chest. Their lips met again, slow and deliberate at first, savoring the connection, the taste, the heat. But soon, the kiss deepened, urgent and demanding, as though the courtyard itself were pushing them toward surrender. Adrian's hands traced the curve of her waist, pulling her closer, while Elena wrapped her arms around his neck, holding him as tightly as she dared. The fountain bubbled softly behind them, its gentle sound mingling with the rhythmic beating of their hearts. The lanterns flickered, casting shadows that danced across their entwined forms, creating an intimate cocoon that separated them from the rest of the world. For the first time, Elena felt completely and utterly alive, intoxicated not just by desire, but by the undeniable connection that bound them together. "I've wanted this for so long," Adrian whispered, his lips brushing against her temple. "Every stolen glance, every quiet moment, it's all led to this. And now I can't imagine holding back." Elena's breath caught, a thrill running through her at his words. "Then don't," she whispered, pressing closer, daring him to take the next step. "I want this too, all of it." He smiled, a slow, predatory curve of his lips, and she felt the heat of anticipation building between them. His hands moved with precision, exploring, teasing, igniting sparks wherever they touched. Elena shivered at the sensation, her fingers tangled in his hair as she surrendered to the magnetic pull that neither of them could resist. For a moment, they simply held each other, foreheads touching, breaths mingling, the world around them reduced to the quiet sounds of the courtyard, the bubbling fountain, the whispering wind, the rustle of leaves. Every sense was heightened, every touch amplified, as though the night itself had conspired to make them feel every inch of longing, every shiver of desire. Adrian leaned in again, capturing her lips with renewed urgency. This time, the kiss was deeper, more insistent, a silent promise that there was no turning back. Elena responded in kind, her body pressing against his, her heart racing in perfect rhythm with his own. Each movement was a conversation, a declaration of temptation, a surrender to the fire that had been building between them for months. "You're irresistible," Adrian murmured against her lips, his hands sliding gently down her back. "Every part of you. I can't get enough." Elena laughed softly, breathless, a sound that was both playful and charged with desire. "And you," she whispered, "make it impossible to resist." I want you, Adrian. Here. Now." The words hung in the night air, heavy with anticipation. The courtyard seemed to lean in with them, shadows flickering like silent witnesses, the fountain gurgling as if in approval. For a moment, everything else, the rules, the world beyond these walls, disappeared. There was only the heat, the longing, the unspoken promise of everything that was yet to come. As Adrian's lips met hers once more, slow and demanding, Elena realized that the courtyard had become more than a sanctuary. It was their stage, their secret, the place where temptation reigned and desire could finally be embraced without hesitation. And in that golden, shadowed light, they surrendered completely to the moment, knowing that neither of them would ever be the same again. The courtyard had grown quiet, save for the soft murmur of the fountain and the occasional rustle of leaves in the evening breeze. The lanterns cast a warm, golden glow over the ivy-covered walls, bathing the space in a romantic haze that made everything seem more vivid, more alive. Elena felt as though the night itself had conspired to magnify every sensation: the heat of Adrian's touch, the warmth of his body pressed against hers, the thrill of the moment they had both been waiting for. Adrian held her close, their bodies perfectly aligned, their breaths mingling in the intimate silence of the courtyard. His dark eyes were fixed on hers, intense, almost mesmerizing. "You have no idea how long I've imagined this moment," he murmured, voice husky, each word deliberate, each syllable igniting a spark inside her. "Every glance, every fleeting touch, it all led to you, here, now." Elena's fingers traced the line of his jaw, her touch feather-light yet electric. "I think," she whispered, "I've been imagining this too. But never like this. Not as real, not as alive." Her words were soft, but their meaning hung heavily in the air between them, a promise of surrender and desire. He leaned down, his lips brushing against hers in a gentle, lingering kiss. The heat between them seemed to ripple outward, mingling with the warm night air, making the courtyard feel smaller, more private, as though it existed solely for them. Adrian's hands moved slowly, reverently, exploring the curve of her back, the slope of her shoulders, igniting sparks with every brush of his fingers. Elena responded instinctively, pressing herself closer, letting the sensation of his touch take her over. The world outside the courtyard, the rules, the proprieties, the distant sounds of the household faded into insignificance. Here, there was only the magnetic pull of each other, only the rising tide of desire that neither could deny. "You're perfect," Adrian whispered, his lips tracing the curve of her neck, his voice low and almost breathless. "Every part of you draws me in, makes me lose control." Elena shivered at his words, a thrill running through her. "Then don't," she breathed, her hands tangling in his hair. "Don't hold back. I want this. I want you." The air seemed to thrum with anticipation as Adrian's lips captured hers again, slow at first, savoring, testing, then more urgent, more demanding, as if the courtyard itself were pushing them toward surrender. Elena responded fully, her body moving against his, every touch, every brush of skin sending shivers down her spine. The fountain's water gurgled softly behind them, the sound mingling with the rhythm of their quickened breaths. He pulled her closer still, and she felt the deliberate weight of his hands, the strength in his embrace, the undeniable intensity of his desire. Their lips parted only briefly, foreheads touching, breaths mingling, hearts racing in perfect unison. Every glance, every whisper, every brush of fingers across skin was a silent promise, a declaration of temptation and longing fulfilled. "I can't stop thinking about you," Adrian admitted, voice low, almost reverent. "I've tried, but tonight, being this close to you, it's impossible." Elena smiled against his lips, the warmth of the moment making her daring, bold. "Then don't," she whispered. "I don't want you to. I want this, Adrian. I want you." His dark eyes darkened further, the desire in them clear, raw, and unrestrained. He pressed his forehead against hers, their breaths mingling, and for a long, suspended moment, they simply stood together, feeling the heat, the anticipation, the quiet intimacy of the courtyard. Finally, he smiled, a slow, predatory curve that made her pulse race. "Then tonight," he murmured, voice husky, "we forget everything else. The world, the rules, nothing exists except this. You and me, Elena. Here, now, and whatever comes next." Elena's lips curved into a daring smile. "I like the sound of that," she whispered, letting herself melt fully into his embrace. Her body pressed against his, the warmth of his touch and the electricity between them igniting a fire that seemed impossible to contain. The courtyard, with its golden lantern light, its ivy-covered walls, and the gentle bubbling of the fountain, held them close, a silent witness to the surrender, the temptation, and the undeniable connection that had been building for months. Tonight, there were no limits, no hesitations, only desire fully embraced, and the intoxicating promise of everything that was yet to come. The night air had grown cooler, yet it only seemed to intensify the heat between them. Lanterns cast flickering patterns across the cobblestones and the ivy-laden walls, the soft golden light turning every shadow into a private witness to their growing intimacy. Elena could feel the pulse of the courtyard in tandem with her own racing heartbeat, the air thick with the intoxicating scent of jasmine and roses. Adrian's hands cradled her face, thumbs brushing gently over her cheeks, as his dark eyes held hers with a magnetic intensity. "Elena," he whispered, voice low and almost breathless, "every second with you feels like it's burning through me. I've never wanted anything this badly." Elena leaned into his touch, her fingers tracing the strong lines of his jaw, the warmth of his skin sending shivers through her. "I feel it too," she admitted softly, her lips brushing his in a fleeting, teasing kiss. "It's like the courtyard, the night, everything is urging us forward. I don't want to resist anymore." Adrian's lips curved into a slow, satisfied smile. "Good," he murmured, leaning down to capture hers in a kiss that was both tender and urgent. His arms wrapped around her, pulling her flush against his chest, and Elena felt the full force of his desire radiating through him. Every brush of his lips, every subtle movement of his hands, sent waves of heat and anticipation coursing through her body. They moved together slowly at first, savoring each moment, letting the tension build, every kiss, every touch a conversation in itself. The courtyard seemed to shrink around them, becoming an intimate cocoon where nothing existed except the electricity of their connection. Lantern light danced across their skin, shadows accentuating every curve, every movement, amplifying the allure of the moment. Elena's hands wandered over his shoulders, down his back, feeling the taut strength of his muscles beneath her fingers. Adrian responded in kind, his fingers tracing the small of her back, moving with a precision that made her shiver in anticipation. The air between them seemed to hum, alive with unspoken promises, the silent pull of temptation that neither could resist. "I've imagined this moment countless times," Adrian whispered against her lips, "but it's nothing like now. You, being here with me, it's beyond anything I've dreamed." Elena's pulse quickened at his words. "Then don't stop," she murmured, letting her lips brush his again. "Keep this connection, alive. I want it. I want you." Adrian's eyes darkened with desire, the intensity almost overwhelming. He pressed her closer, their bodies moving in perfect alignment, every touch, every brush of skin igniting sparks that traveled from fingertips to heart. The courtyard, with its ivy walls and flickering lanterns, became their private sanctuary, a stage for the surrender and temptation that had been simmering between them for months. "You're driving me wild," he admitted, voice low and husky, "and I don't want to be held back anymore. I need you, Elena, completely." Elena responded instinctively, wrapping her arms around his neck, pressing herself against him fully, letting the waves of desire and anticipation take over. The fountain gurgled softly behind them, a rhythmic accompaniment to the quickening beat of their hearts. Every glance, every touch, every whisper heightened the tension, pulling them further into a shared moment of heat and longing. For a long, suspended instant, they simply held each other, foreheads touching, breaths mingling, hearts racing in unison. The courtyard seemed to lean in around them, shadows flickering like silent witnesses, amplifying the intimacy of the night. Then, with a slow, deliberate movement, Adrian leaned down, brushing his lips across hers again, deeper this time, as if sealing the unspoken promise of the night. Elena melted into him, letting go of hesitation, letting herself be completely present in the sensation, the heat, the longing. The courtyard held them in its embrace, golden light and shadows dancing across their entwined forms, as they surrendered fully to the temptation that had been building for months. Every touch, every whispered word, every stolen kiss brought them closer to a connection that was as emotional as it was passionate. The courtyard, a silent witness to their journey, seemed to hum with life, mirroring the fire that blazed between them. And in that golden, shadowed space, Elena realized with a thrill of certainty that nothing would ever feel the same again. Tonight, the courtyard had become theirs, not just a place of temptation, but a sanctuary where desire, passion, and longing could finally be fully embraced. The courtyard was hushed now, the late night air carrying the faint rustle of leaves and the gentle gurgle of the fountain. Lanterns flickered softly, their golden glow wrapping Elena and Adrian in a cocoon of warmth and shadow. The tension that had been building between them for months, the unspoken desire, and the simmering temptation, all of it reached its crescendo in the intimacy of this moment. Adrian held her close, his forehead resting against hers, dark eyes gleaming with a mixture of longing and tenderness. "Elena," he whispered, voice low and reverent, every moment with you tonight has been, beyond anything I could have imagined. I've wanted you for so long, and now, he trailed off, letting the intensity of the night speak for him. Elena's fingers brushed along his jaw, tracing the line of his face with a delicate boldness. I feel the same, she said softly. I've dreamed of this, of us, but it's more than I ever imagined. Here, with you, it feels like the world doesn't exist beyond this courtyard. He smiled, a slow, intimate curve of his lips, and pressed a lingering kiss to her forehead, savoring the warmth of her skin. You've changed everything, he murmured. You've made me feel things I didn't even know I could feel. And now, I don't want to be anywhere else but here, with you. Elena's breath hitched at his words. She could feel the heat of his body, the strength of his arms holding her close, the rhythm of his heartbeat matching her own. The courtyard, with its ivy-draped walls and glowing lanterns, seemed suspended in time, holding them in a private world where desire and emotion blended seamlessly. She leaned in, brushing her lips across his in a soft, tender kiss that deepened slowly, building into something more urgent, more passionate. Adrian responded immediately, his hands tracing the curve of her back, drawing her even closer, pressing her against him as if he never wanted to let go. Each movement, each brush of lips and fingertips, spoke of longing, surrender, and a love that had been quietly growing beneath the surface for months. I've never felt this before, Elena whispered, breaking the kiss just enough to let her words sink in. Not like this. Not with anyone. Adrian cupped her face, his thumb brushing over her cheek, eyes dark with emotion. Neither have I, he confessed. It's as if everything I've been waiting for, led me to you. And now I don't want to waste a single moment apart from you. They stood in the golden glow, arms wrapped around each other, breaths mingling, hearts beating in unison. The courtyard seemed to lean closer, shadows dancing around them, the fountain's soft murmur providing a rhythm to their closeness. Every glance, every touch, every whispered word carried a weight of desire and devotion that made the night feel endless, timeless. Finally, Elena rested her forehead against his chest, feeling the steady thrum of his heartbeat beneath her lips. Promise me, she whispered, that we'll always find our way back to moments like this, to each other. Adrian pressed a kiss to the top of her head, his arms tightening around her. I promise, he said firmly, voice husky with emotion. No matter what happens, this, you, us, will always matter. You are the center of everything I've wanted, Elena. Always. Tears of happiness and relief welled in her eyes, and she laughed softly, a sound mingling with the gentle night air. Then I don't need anything else, she murmured. Just this, just you. He smiled, lowering his lips to meet hers one last time, slow and tender, savoring the intimacy of the moment. The kiss was a seal, a declaration, a surrender to the love and desire that had been building between them. And when they finally parted, it was only to gaze into each other's eyes, hearts beating as one, the courtyard silent around them in reverent stillness. The night stretched on, golden lantern light reflecting off their entwined forms, shadows dancing softly against the walls. The courtyard, once a simple place of quiet beauty, had become a sanctuary, a witness to the temptation, passion, and love that had finally been embraced. And in that magical space, Elena and Adrian knew that nothing could ever separate them again, not time, not distance, not circumstance. With a final, lingering embrace, they stepped back slightly, hands still intertwined, eyes locked in unspoken understanding. Tonight had been the culmination of desire, the birth of something deeper, something lasting. And as the lanterns flickered softly above, the courtyard held its breath with them, a silent witness to the promise of countless nights yet to come. Elena rested her head on Adrian's shoulder, a contented sigh escaping her lips. This was perfect, she whispered. Adrian tightened his arms around her, a satisfied smile on his face. Perfect, he echoed. And it's only the beginning. The courtyard glowed softly under the lantern light, a silent, golden testament to temptation, longing, and the love that had finally found its home.